Howard Beck, the host of the Locked On, one of the hosts on the Locked On Network, and a contributor to GQ Sports, at Howard Beck on Twitter. And how would you describe the 4 games on Wednesday? Because I looked at it, I was like, man, the NBA is doing 4 games on Wednesday. Why is that? And I realized before I finished speaking, oh yeah, the NFL draft is Thursday. So why would they put 4? I see why they did 4 games, but man, all 4 games, they delivered, Howard.
Yeah, and great to be with you, Kirk. It's not really about the NFL. It's the first round of the NBA playoffs, just everything when you're planning for the potential that every series could go at least 5, and we had a bunch of Game 5s last night. You set the schedule to have the games when it's logical to have them to space out the games that allow for travel, figure out the NBA TV versus TNT versus ESPN versus ABC schedule. So it was all of that, and there actually would be more than 1 game tonight if other series hadn't ended yet. So there would be a bunch of games tonight too. Like there could have been a whole stacked slate. It's unfortunate because those were all 4 really important games last night, and it was impossible unless I only got 1 TV myself. I don't know about you guys, but unless I was going to set up like laptops and iPhones and everything on my coffee table, I was not going to be able to watch all of them simultaneously, and I think my brain would have exploded anyway. Yeah,
I see, Howard. That's what I had to do because it was too much. As a resident Warriors fan, born and raised in the Bay Area, I had to have the main TV on that one, but then all of a sudden I'm watching what's going on in the top right corner of the broadcast, and all of a sudden that score between the Bucks and the Heat started getting closer and closer and closer. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to watch this. So I was watching that game last night. What is your biggest takeaway of just the 4 games yesterday? What was the biggest takeaway, I think, of the whole night? Was it the Knicks advancing? Was it the Bucks being a 1 seed, being bounced? Lakers losing in a Game 5 scenario where they could have eliminated the Grizzlies? Or was it the Warriors winning 3 straight?
I mean, all of them were fascinating for their own reasons, but right. I mean, you got to start with the Bucks. You have to start like a number 1 seed losing to an 8 seed in the first round in the NBA playoffs just doesn't happen very often. And in this case, you weren't just losing to an 8 seed. You're losing to a Miami Heat team that had a losing record, 40-42, that had to make the playoffs through the play-in tournament. Right. Mm-hmm. That lost Tyler Hero, their second-best scorer, along the way in the series, that didn't have that much firepower to begin with, that just wasn't that good. And they just knocked out the Bucks, who won the championship just 2 years ago and have a 2-time MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo. And, listen, there's the unsightliness of it all. Losing in 5 games besides, not even being able to extend the series as I was certain they would. Not calling timeout, at the end of regulation there when you had a moment to advance the ball and set a play. Mm-hmm. Everything, every aspect of it. Not even getting a shot off at the end of overtime either. Like
yeah.
It was just a disaster on every level. There's going to be consequences because there always are in this league, especially if you're a team with legitimate championship expectations to go down that way. They have a very long and tough offseason ahead of them.
He's the host of the Locked On NBA podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Howard Beck, joining the Rich Eisen Show. Kirk Morrison here filling in for Rich. So Milwaukee is out, but it does set up an intriguing matchup, one that everybody's excited. I know the guys here, we're excited about a Eastern Conference semifinal matchup between the Miami Heat and the New York Knicks, bringing us back to our NBA Jam days, right? The 90s basketball is going to be alive and well when it comes to the Heat and Knicks. How impressed are you with the Knicks just getting out of the first round and getting to that second round, something they haven't done since 2013?
Yeah, really impressive. The whole season by the Knicks has been pretty impressive. There were times earlier this season where it looked like, they're going to hover around 500. They're going to have a good, solid season. Maybe they grab the 6th seed. Maybe they're a play-in team. And really, ever since they picked up Josh Hart in a really smart trade with the Trailblazers in the middle of the season, they've just taken off and have reached a whole new level. And I think what's so impressive is this is not, by most standards, the traditional build of an NBA power, right? Like, this is not a star-laden team. This is not a team with an MVP candidate and a bunch of all-NBA guys on it or anything. Like, Jalen Brunson was a second-round pick who developed with the Mavericks, who chose to leave them for the Knicks, who the Knicks people questioned whether they were overpaying for him, and the guy has just been an absolute stud. Didn't make the All-Star team, probably won't end up on any of the All-NBA teams when those are announced. But Jalen Brunson's playing like a top 10 point guard. Julius Randle, who might make All-NBA again, is very up and down, didn't have a great series, got hurt again in their closeout game last night, but they just play tough. They play a way beyond what their names would suggest or their resumes would suggest. And that, in a lot of ways, like, is reminiscent of those 90s Knicks teams. Like, outside of Patrick Ewing, it's not like they had a ton of high-level talent to go toe-to-toe with the Bulls or the Pacers or anybody else. Mm-hmm. So, in a lot of ways, this Knicks team and this Heat team that they're going to face,
same.
It's a little like the 90s. And Jimmy Butler, like Jalen Brunson, a guy who's just kind of a self-made guy, not, didn't come into the league with high expectations or with, jump out of the gym type of athleticism. This is going to be a cage match, I assume.
Yeah, there was 4 games on Wednesday. There is one game actually today, Thursday, NFL Draft Day. By the way, it's the Boston Celtics taking on the Atlanta Hawks as the Philadelphia 76ers await that winner, whether it's the Boston Celtics who can close out in Game 6 tonight, or will this be a Game 7? What are you looking to see in this game tonight? If the Hawks are able to go 7, do they have a chance outside if they don't win today?
Listen, the Celtics should have put this thing away a couple of times already. And, I've seen it before in this league where the team that's clearly more talented and heavily favored, starts kind of messing around. You let your guard down, you blow a big lead. Like the Celtics have done, all the ways in which you can be a great team that doesn't stay focused long enough to close out a team. Like they've done it in this series. I still think the Celtics are winning the series. I think they're closing it out tonight. Maybe it's even a blowout. Like the Hawks, they've been basically a 500 team all season. They are a team that on paper always looks kind of like they should be much better than they are. Trae Young is absolutely a gamer and certainly has taken his game to another notch in this series, but I just don't think that they have the overall firepower to keep up with the Celtics. And the Celtics, at their best, can be a suffocating defensive team. They've got much better depth. The bottom line is that the fact that this is still a series, some credit to the Hawks, yes, absolutely. But this is really more about like the Celtics, an indictment of their focus. And listen, that if you've blown it a couple times, you could blow it a third time and have this thing go to 7. But I don't think where this is going.
Veteran NBA reporter Howard Beck joining the Rich Eisen Show. Follow him on Twitter at Howard Beck, also the host of the Locked On NBA podcast. And Howard, before I get to the West, because there's still some unsettled series in the West with the Warriors and Lakers and obviously the Kings and the Grizzlies, but I was kind of putting together an all-NBA first-round team, right? Because I feel like the playoffs gives us the opportunity to focus on some guys that we may have overlooked in the regular season. And I'm looking at Malik Monk, who's having an outstanding series with the Kings. Obviously, you mentioned Jalen Brunson already. Trae Young is reminding us why he's one of the better players in the league, and yet people say he's one of the most overrated players. I'm looking at Murray over in Denver, the outstanding series he had. And then Jimmy Butler continues to prove to us that regardless of what happens, the dude is still one of the baddest dudes in the NBA. Is there anybody else I'm missing on this list that it's just for the first round? I'm not saying for the whole entire, but or just showing what playoff basketball is really all about to you.
I mean, I don't want this to sound like the typical New York bias of a guy based in New York, but Mitchell Robinson.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely just owned the Cavs front court. I mean, Jared Allen has been an all-star. Evan Mobley is considered to be, obviously one of the bright young players in this league, runner-up for Rookie of the Year last season. And this season he's been outstanding and is, to the extent that the Cavs have a long, great future ahead of them, it's partially because Evan Mobley, people think, can turn into a superstar. Mitchell Robinson just absolutely outworked those guys, rebounding wise, shot blocking wise, everything. So he's another one I would put on your first round All-NBA.
Yeah, guys, because I think about Fred VanVleet a couple years ago on the Raptors run, And it was just like, okay. And then all of a sudden, boom, they become you watch them now in the playoffs, and they become superstars the following year. So I put that list together. But as we head to the Western Conference, we got a doubleheader on Friday, 2 Game 6s. The Warriors, they can close out against the Sacramento Kings after the Kings have went up 2-0. Draymond Green suspended in Game 3. He comes off the bench in Games 4 and 5. It's been 3 consecutive victories for the Warriors. How do you see this one playing out? Does this series end on Friday, Howard?
I picked the Warriors to win the series, and I picked them to win in 6. So they're up 3-2. I expect that they should close out. But the Kings have been really impressive and very steady. And for a team that, look, the franchise hasn't been in the playoffs in 17 years, and most of this Kings roster has not really had any playoff experience to speak of outside of Harrison Barnes, who obviously was with the Warriors back in the day. But the Kings have not seemed at all, in awe of where they are, of the team that they're facing, of the playoff atmosphere, any of it. They have been incredibly steady. So I still give them a chance. De'Aaron Fox, despite the broken finger, still had a pretty impactful game. Malik Monk, as you mentioned earlier, has been good. Sabonis has not been quite at the level that they need. Credit to Kevon Looney and Draymond Green for kind of nullifying him at times. I expect the Warriors to win. It won't shock me entirely, given the Warriors have been kind of up and down this year, if the Kings somehow won that one at Chase Center and forced a Game 7. But I would lean Warriors.
Last question for you, Howard, because the last piece of that Western Conference puzzle with the Suns and Nuggets already into that next that conference semifinal in the West, the last team to qualify will either be the Memphis Grizzlies or the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers put up a dud last night, especially in that fourth quarter. I'm saying this now, Howard. Tell me if I'm wrong. Lakers don't win at home on Friday. I think the Grizzlies take this series. That's how important. I feel like this is actually the Game 7 or the elimination game Friday night for the Lakers, because if they go back to Memphis, I just don't see them winning.
I mean, I totally get that. A couple different things there. I mean, one, obviously being on the road, and it's a long flight back to Tennessee from LA. Two, the Grizzlies have the younger legs, right? Like Ja Morant is banged up, the wrist thing. They're down bodies because they don't have Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, 2 key front court players. But they've got the younger legs. The travel's not going to affect them as much. The longer series isn't going to affect them as much. Being at home is certainly going to give them that extra boost. You've let them stick around this long when you had the opportunity to put them away. I think it's incredibly dangerous not to close this thing out in Game 6. I'll never bet against LeBron James, even this version of LeBron James.
Yeah.
But yeah, they really do need to close this thing out in LA.
Sounds good. I know you'll be watching tonight, Howard, the one lone NBA game tonight, the Celtics and the Hawks. Look forward to hearing you on the Locked On NBA podcast and all your coverage of the NBA at Howard Beck on Twitter. Appreciate the time, Howard.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.